I've been making this video for like a week now, or over a week, and I am having trouble finishing it because I know the fact that I can potentially change two people's lives for the better, and the only thing preventing me from doing that is my own laziness. Trevor and Hayden are homeless. They live in Orange County, and I think that they are just in a shitty situation and they deserve better, and I think that we can give them the things that they need for them to get on their feet, and I want that to happen. I think you might just be asking the question straight up, why should I trust giving my money to people who are homeless? Because maybe in your mind, just the fact that they're homeless makes them not financially able to be able to handle, even if they got money, they would just spend it on drugs or booze or whatever. And that's a perfectly valid question, and my response to that is listen to their story. I think that, and if you need further consideration, hey, I will go on the street with them, but I will do what I need to do to make this work because they deserve it. And the fact that I'm in a position in life where I was born into a place where I can be of service to these people, and I have the opportunity to do that, I feel like I should. It's hard for me just to go interview people and say, can I tell your story? And it's great that I'm telling your story, but then just leave and not do anything about it. It's been really hard for me doing that, and I feel like it's not what's right. So I want to start a GoFundMe and open that up for Trevor and Hayden and hopefully get them on their feet. And then I want to show the progress on this channel as they progress farther and farther into their new lives, and I need your help to do that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, just ask in the comments, but enjoy this Worlds episode with Trevor and Hayden, and thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Peace. Enjoy. Here we are. What's up? How you guys doing? This is Trevor and Hayden, and I'm Max. How you guys doing? Thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure.
So, where are you guys from? And can you just tell me a little bit about? I mean, like, I'd love, depending on how much time you want to go into this, but I'd love to hear like your story, just in general, and explaining your situation and where you guys are at right now.
Okay.
You can go first.
All right. Well, where to begin? I was born in New Mexico, right? In a little tiny trucker town called Moriarty, New Mexico, and its basically population was, I think, 3,000, and our high school was like 1,000 people, and that was from like all the surrounding towns as well, you know what I mean? And I grew up on a little 5-acre farm out there. My parents were pretty bad alcoholics, and I ended up moving out of there at 16 years old. I went to stay with a friend in Edgewood, New Mexico, which is only about 7 miles away from there. But I only stayed there for a couple of months, and then I moved to Carlsbad, New Mexico, which is in like far southern New Mexico, and it was like an oil field town about 500 miles away from where I grew up. I did that for a couple of years. I ended up getting into the wrong crowd there and ended up moving back in with my parents in Monahans, Texas.
How old were you?
It was a week before my 18th birthday, and then I was there till about 18 and a half.
Okay.
And during that time I was also working in the oil field. During that time I actually met with a bunch of my friends from Carlsbad, and we decided we were going to make a plan to move up to Denver, Colorado. So
I'm from Steamboat, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you from?
Denver.
Oh, okay, cool. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's actually where I was the last 5 or 6 years or so. Yeah, I moved up there. I think I was 19 by the time I was fully settled up there. I got into trouble with the law up there. Caught a possession charge for drugs.
What drugs? You can
well,
feel
honestly,
free to talk about what you want to.
it's actually pretty weird. I'm not gonna lie, I've pretty much done any drug. I've done pretty much all the drugs.
Yeah.
But this was actually during a period of time when I was not using. I found a jacket on the road, and it was a nice jacket. It was like a brand new Carhartt jacket, you know, so it was super good. And up in Denver, you need a good jacket, you know what I mean? I was housed at that time. I wasn't homeless or anything at that point in time. But I felt the pockets, and it felt like there was just like a little bit of like dirt in the bottom of it, or something like that. And turns out that that was methamphetamines. But because they had no plausible way of proving that like I actually did it, they gave me a hell of a plea deal, and I ended up taking a charge for something that wasn't even meth. It was a diet pill called pyrovalerone, and got 1 year probation. Well, because of all that, I had spent like 2 weeks in jail, you know, before my court date and everything, and I wasn't in I was in jail, so I wasn't able to go to work. Because I wasn't able to go to work, I didn't get a paycheck. Since I didn't get a paycheck, I couldn't pay my rent. So it made me homeless for the first time in my life, and I found.
And how old were you? And you were in Denver, right?
Yeah, 18 or 19. I don't remember exactly. 19. I must have been 19. So
What happened the night of? Okay, so you were in jail, or you had gotten out of jail and you couldn't pay rent or whatever, and then.
So I got out on like the 4th or 5th of that month. So it was like right towards the end of when we were gonna be like evicted out of there, you know. So I was able to go back. My roommate, who I was living with at the time, he actually was not there anymore. So I was basically able to go back and take whatever I could fit on a backpack, and had to get out of the house. Didn't have a car to move my stuff or anywhere to put it, so you know, that was pretty much my only option. And from there I ended up finding a homeless shelter called Urban Peak in Denver. It's in like southern Denver. I don't know if you know like where around Denver everything is.
Yeah.
It's on South Broadway, like pretty much I'd say like 5-10 minutes by car from downtown to the south of there. And yeah, I was there for, I don't know, how long do you think I was at the Peak? This is where I also met Hayden, was at the Peak.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I was at Urban Peak for basically a year, and I was basically restarting from scratch. I was, you know, I had none of my I didn't have my ID, my social, or my birth certificate or anything like that. So it took me about 2 months with this awesome homeless shelter that had a whole program set up to
Try and help you.
Yeah, and they were basically able to help me out with getting my ID and my social security card and all that stuff. I was able to start working, and you know, I was doing pretty good. I eventually got into I was living out of a hotel room with a few of the people that I met at the homeless shelter that I knew I could trust. And I did that for about 3 months or so before, since what I was doing was kind of under the table work, getting paid cash at the end of the week, you know. One day, my boss decided to not pay us because it was towards the end of a job, and you know, I guess he figured it'd be easier. So I ended up having to go back to the Peak for about 3 months. But after that, I just got myself like a kitchen job, you know. So I was working at this place called Lark Burger right on downtown Denver in 16th Street Mall.
I've been to Lark Burger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to work at a Lark Burger. So
Sad they're not around anymore.
Yeah, rip Lark Burger.
yeah, I worked there just before they actually started closing down. I had a manager, his name was Gordon, and he ended up quitting, and he said, look, this company's gonna fail, you know, don't want to be the last person on a ship when it's sinking, so get out while you can. So I stayed there maybe 2 more months. The new manager was a bitch, and she was just like the worst. I hope you don't mind if I cuss.
No, go for it, yeah.
Okay, yeah. She was just terrible. She was honestly one of the worst managers I ever had.
She was terrible.
Yeah, I worked there about 2 more months before I finally just got the fuck out of there. But basically, while I was working at Lark Burger, I had gotten myself another hotel room, and it was just me and one other person that I knew from the Peak. And Hayden was actually coming back from the Rainbow Festival up in Oregon and needed a place to stay. So she came and stayed at my hotel room for a little while. We pretty much hit it off and just sort of started dating. We never really had like a first date, or she just sort of moved in and now we're like together, you know what I mean?
So you guys met each other, and so what was your story leading up to the point before you two met?
Yeah, and then we'll go from there where our stories merge.
Okay, alright, sure.
And introduce yourself too real quick.
So I'm Hayden. Can the camera see me?
Yeah? Yeah.
Okay.
I'll double check confirm, but yeah, I can see
I
you.
guess it doesn't matter too much since my face is getting blurred out.
Yeah, no, it can see you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Hayden. I am 23. I was born in Denver, Colorado. For the first 8 years of my life, it was my mom, my dad, and I, like, real family. My mom was a heavy opiate addict, right? My dad was heavy into methamphetamines. She prioritized heroin over me and my sister, right? She would buy heroin instead of buying enough food to feed the family. We were in and out of motel rooms, and this lasted up until it was 8. And my father was shot by his dealer. He owed him a lot of money. So I ended up getting into the foster care system, and I felt invisible, for a good portion of my life, because that I always wondered why it felt like I didn't matter. If that makes sense.
Just because of your parents?
Yeah, my parents
and how they
like.
looked at you?
Yeah, and and growing up in the system, I felt like I had to fight for attention, if that makes sense. I had to almost act out to, any attention is good attention.
Act out in a negative manner?
Yeah, to get attention,
And you said in the system, what system are you implying?
Foster care system, group homes.
Okay.
I didn't do well in school either. I was always getting into trouble in school. I remember probably the worst and stupidest thing I did was unfold a paperclip and stick it into an electrical socket of a power strip. It caught on fire.
And did you know what would happen, but you did it anyway?
I did not think about it.
Yeah.
It caught on fire, and I was surprised, like, whoa, why'd that happen?
Yeah.
So I was lucky not to catch an arson charge there. By the time I was in 8th grade, I was anorexic and bulimic, and I had begun to self-harm.
And that was just due to your situation?
Yeah, growing up the way I did.
Yeah.
So a lot of self-loathing and depression going on then. I was not doing well in school, and I was diagnosed with ADHD. But in all reality, I was told I was actually really intelligent. I just didn't place that intelligence into the right areas. I was studying psychology on my own.
Yeah.
Because the way people interact with one another, the way you can, like, for example, like, I could build a rapport with you, use the same sort of language that you use, articulate myself a lot better, make more eye contact, and seem more confident, and we would get along better.
Yeah.
Right? That's an example. It sort of fascinates me, and
that fascinated you at a young age?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 8th grade, roughly.
Yeah. And you talked about how you had like self-loathing and things like that, and your parents and your home life wasn't stable. And you feel like you had anyone you could go to like talk about your issues, or no? Yeah, there was a school counselor, which also sort of led me into the pathway of psychology. It's like I had all these personal issues going on, and psychology actually started to help me fix these within myself. Self-loathing and depression, oftentimes, if it's not clinical, can be traced back to a certain cause, to say the first 3 years in your life having a partial factor in it with the way that you interact with the outside world. Yeah. Sorry, I'm tired. No, you're good. Yeah, you can learn to sort of counteract those things and be like, all right, I think in this way, I behave in this way because this happened to me. I can counteract this depression by going out and, talking to people, smiling more, being more, what's the word? Extroverted. Yeah. That's the word, but being more extroverted. I realize, part of the reason why I'm depressed is because, I isolate. I feel like people
don't pay any attention to me, and don't give me the attention I need and deserve.
That's now, or was that then?
Back then. But I realized part of the issue was I was pushing myself away from those people, because after a while, you become comfortable in that depression. You become comfortable in those issues because it's all you know. In order to grow out of those spaces of anxiety and depression, you have to push yourself beyond that bubble and be willing to grow. So
Because you had to want it. You had to want it, right?
Exactly, you'd want it for
Yeah.
sure. So psychology kind of helped me fix my own issues and trace it back to the psychological issues I developed when I was younger, and kind of build from there. Be like, I need to look myself in the mirror every day, and tell myself, it's in my head. I'm not eating because I want control over my body. It's not that I physically am ugly, and if I start to convince myself that I'm beautiful, I'll believe it. So that helped me kind of overcome some of my issues. I still was not doing well in school. It just didn't interest me.
What part of school did not interest you?
I sort of believed, the things that they were teaching really had no real life application, And, be that as it may, the school system in America is extremely important for one reason. You do well in school, you do well later in life. You'll make more money, you'll be more successful. I wasn't gathering that,
At the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I was more focused on the things that they were teaching having no immediate value to me, and that's always kind of been an issue of mine, is instant gratification over
Long-term gain.
Exactly.
Possibility.
And I'm gonna wrap back to this, but I think people who are genetically disposed to addictive behaviors tend to think that way. Like for example, like an alcoholic would think, hey, I need to get drunk right now to solve this issue, not realizing they're gonna go home and create problems in their marriage.
Yeah.
It's gonna, over the long term, break up their marriage. So, psychology was, my passion. I believe, I can help other people as well, and it's gonna be my career path. Well, it didn't end up happening. I didn't end up, being able to pursue it because I dropped out. I dropped out at 11th grade.
Why did you drop out?
Oh, I got in trouble at school, and I didn't want to face the consequences. And
Do you mind talking about what you did or no?
I'm not gonna get into that too much. It's not too important.
Okay, that's.
But anyways, I left out on my own. I ended up at Urban Peak when I was 18.
That's where we
Met
met.
Trevor.
Yeah.
At that point, I hadn't messed around with substances too much. I drank a few times, but I never really let it become a habit.
Yeah.
But
For you, you ended up at Urban Peak because it's a homeless shelter.
mhm.
And at what point did you become? So Trevor became homeless when he so you were in jail, and then you got out of jail, couldn't pay your rent, and you became homeless. So
Yes.
at what point did you become homeless?
May of 2016.
Okay. And the reasons why you became homeless were what? Or do you not feel comfortable talking? I want to clear something up real quick.
Mhm.
So something weird on my end as far as asking you guys these questions is clearly like these things are distressful for you guys to talk about. And I don't want to cause you more stress than you already have to go through on a day-to-day basis, or I'd assume that you go through on a day-to-day basis. Because I think that me asking you a question that causes you stress for my story to be better.
We're both open books.
Okay,
Someone
cool.
tried
Yeah.
the security guard for this building that works here in the morning tried to throw away our belongings this
Okay,
morning.
yeah.
We get harassed by police every single day. Talking about our past is no big deal.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
There's no
Honest-
question you could ask us that could phase us honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We got pretty tough skin. We don't really get our feelings hurt too bad these days. You know?
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to clear that up because I don't want to be taking advantage of you guys in your situation for a YouTube video.
Oh no, you're
Um,
absolutely not.
And the whole purpose of this is to educate people, because I think, frankly, it's funny. Like, I mean, I even think about it like I'd be talking about or voting about like homeless issues in America,
Mhm.
but I was like, well, how often have I talked to a homeless person or people? And it's like almost never.
Yeah.
And I want to get into the point of like how homeless people are largely ignored and why that is. But first, I would like to continue to talk about what happened when you two met and how you ended up here in Southern California.
Okay.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say that's wonderful because, a lot of people in America just fill in a box, fill in a bubble, you know what I mean? They don't know what they're voting on. They'll look at an ad and say, oh, hey, that sounds good, without realizing, that ad is, severely biased. Like vote on Proposition 21, whatever. They'll look at it and not look into the actual proposition, but say, hey, that sounds good. I like the sound of that, and vote for it. They don't actually look into what they're voting on. And they'll, a lot of people will just see homeless people on the street, not talk to them, and make decisions on voting on those sorts of things as well. So
That
I
can
think
affect
it's
their
really,
lives.
really great that you look into it.
True.
Yeah, honestly, just anybody who's willing to try to learn anything firsthand is, I feel like they're
A
just
very open-minded and intelligent person.
exactly.
I'm trying.
Anybody who tries to, get to know the world around them, kind of like what you're doing, actually talk with people and gather their experiences is an intelligent person,
Yeah.
an intelligent and open-minded person.
How do you think people? So for homeless people, for example, I think a lot of people feel, for example, like endangered
Mm-hmm.
by the fact of like going up to like a homeless person and talking to them
Yeah.
because of what gets pushed around.
Partially, and it's partially
that's-
because,
it's-
honestly, I think that society, on one level or another, has a kind of a good reason for this as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't believe it's right that they lump all homeless people in with that crowd, but there are some really
some
fucked up
crazy
people
people.
out here that will
Yeah.
do some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was
Most
just
of
gonna
them
say that,
won't
yeah.
do anything unless you step on their toes.
Yeah.
But a good portion of, the visible aspect of this that you can see is due to methamphetamine use. People talking
Yeah.
to themselves and, people, like you go down to LA, I've heard stories of people like walking around naked. That's a perfect example of that. That's frightening behavior that people can't understand. I can't
Yeah.
even understand it. I've never done methamphetamine,
Yeah.
but I know it's associated with it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's
And,
partially drug use, mental illness. It becomes this amalgamation of you to where you can't even specifically pinpoint
Hold
what
the
it.
cigarette away.
Sorry,
it's okay.
we're gonna
Thank
share
you,
that.
though.
That by the way, that's our last one.
So yeah, a lot of people, they do fear homeless people because it's not something they understand, and the things that they do see and are able to understand is
It's not
frightening.
pretty. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that like you guys said, in some cases it's like, I don't know if it's you should be scared, but you should be aware of like certain type of people. Like, I mean, I tried to walk up to people before I met you guys that were definitely not in a place where they could sit down and have a conversation where I'd feel safe. And there's people like that, but that's the thing. It's just like generalization.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like a super negative thing almost
sure.
everywhere. Just
I'm so
because
sorry.
you're okay. Just because then. But that you can't lump those people in with like people like you guys who are like pretty open, like super open to talk with me and are taking time out of your day to do so.
Yeah, honestly, I'm glad I could be a part of this. It just helps,
Yeah, me
like,
as well.
you want to help educate people, and honestly, we were just talking about today how, like, what we would be able to do to stop,
Homeless suppression.
homeless suppression and discrimination, and, that's the only way is through educating people,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
You know?
judgment is both a good and a bad thing, right? You walk down a dark alley at night, and you see a hooded figure and you walk away. That's a good judgment. That's a good judgment. But you see somebody sitting on the sidewalk and they're not doing anything wrong, and you make that same fear-based judgment about them. I mean, it's understandable, but it's not a good judgment. Like this person's a piece of shit, or this person may be dangerous. Judgment protects you, but it can also hurt other people. So it's both a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
I was going somewhere with that in the beginning, but I forgot my point, so I just kind of.
No,
I'm
you're
not
all
gonna
good.
lie, I do that all the time. Like, yeah, exactly like that.
Let's forget,
That's
yeah.
how you-
So you guys were talking about, well, Hayden, you were talking
homeless
about.
shelter.
Well, yeah. Well, also when you guys met,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
He
So-
went to Urban Peak in March. I went in May. We met there and we hung out a lot, but we never really started dating until years later.
okay.
Yeah.
And what is for people who don't know, so you went to a homeless shelter, and what is that process like as a homeless person when you go to a homeless shelter? Like, what do they require? I mean, I bet it's different per homeless shelter, but what do they require of you? Like, what are the rules? What are their intentions as far as like helping you get to a certain place?
Okay.
What
So
happened in that process?
the shelter we went to was Urban Peak, and it was actually
In
one of the
Denver.
nicest shelters because it was still a youth shelter. So you can only be there between the ages of 18 to 21, and younger than 18 if it's cool with your parents or whatever. You know what I mean? But
Or the state.
yeah, and so there was you didn't need an ID to get in. They made your own photo, like they would take your own picture so that they would, know who you are and everything. And they had basically you had your own case manager, and basically on a case-by-case basis based on where they were, what identification and what cards they had, what they needed, what they want to do with their life, they would help create a plan. And usually these plans are about, 6 months to 12 months, something like that. They try to make it so that you don't have to stay until you're 21 and then get booted out, not ready or whatever.
Why do you get booted out when you're? Well, at what point do you get booted out?
21st birthday, right?
Why
on the
is
dot. That's just their age
Really?
Their
limitations.
age cutoff, yeah.
Just for that shelter. It's not every shelter, but
Yeah, I
just
can't
Urban
tell you
Peak
about
was-
other shelters because
Yeah.
Urban Peak was the only one I've ever stayed at.
Yeah, it was like the nicest shelter, and it still wasn't great.
So
the
there-
people there, you'd always get your stuff stolen from you.
From other
They were
people.
always using drugs, getting into fights.
Within the
So-
shelter?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And
And
there's
the
probably
basic-
rules against that.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
absolutely.
are.
Yeah.
They'll kick you out or give you what was called an overnight. You sleep on the streets for a night and come back in. Assuming they have beds, you have to go through the process. Basically, they'd have 40 beds. You have to be there twice a day for what they call bed checks. It was 7 and 10 p.m.
Yeah, 7:30 you had to be there for first bed checks, and that's to sign in basically to let you know you're trying to stay there for the night. And then you come back at 10 and they
Then
let
your
you.
bed is secured. Yeah, once you get an overnight, if they have available open beds at bed checks, and you can get back in. But basically, the basic requirements for staying there were that you had a plan and you were trying to actively take steps to make the best of that plan.
Exactly. And the
So,
only other
yeah,
requirements would
degenerates
be
could stay there.
yeah, and the only other requirement was chores. They gave us one chore for every meal of the day. So there's 3 square meals, good eating too, honestly, because there'd be volunteers who'd come and they had a full-blown kitchen back there. So it was honestly really good food there, better than I'll bet you probably any other homeless shelter there is. You know what I mean?
And what does the food look like? Just out of curiosity. What is
Anything
it?
that could be made for large quantities of people.
Yeah.
Some days it'd be kind of cheap,
It's like cafeteria food.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
school
but-
cafeteria food kind of.
Exactly, and then every once in a while there's a big old Christian family who will come and make you the bombest meal you've ever had in your
Yeah.
life,
They
you know?
order pizzas.
Yeah, people order pizzas for us sometimes and stuff like
That's
that.
sick. Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, in order to do it, you just had to do one chore. They eat one thing too is pick up cigarette butts outside to wipe down the tables at the end to sweep out the dorms. It was all just super easy shit, and you only had to do one of them, and that was the only actual requirement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so you're in dorms with other people around you.
Mhm.
And these people can be, so earlier we talked about the spectrum of homeless people, where you have the people on methamphetamines that are really dangerous to themselves and other people, but then people like you guys who are super chill and open.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel staying in a place where you have that variety of people, and you go there the first night and you're I don't even know who's around me and what their potential or what their intentions are. or things like
Exactly.
So
that.
I don't know if you know too much about addiction, but basically, they say addiction is a disease, and what classifies something as a disease is progressive, fatal, and there's one more. It's progressive, it's fatal and
I don't remember.
oh yeah, well those are the two important ones. Progressive. So you see these people out here talking to themselves. It's not that way when you first start. You know, so the youth, they aren't as dangerous as the people out here because the ones that were going to get addicted and, you know, throw their lives away and, you know, become dangerous weren't too far in the process.
Okay.
So you didn't really have to worry too much about other people around you being a danger.
Yeah.
You know, you had to worry about, like, you know, at most maybe making them angry and them wanting to fight you, or getting your possessions stolen.
Exactly.
So it wasn't like too frightening, for sure. But you would experience that if you went to an adult shelter, for
Yeah.
sure.
They also drug tested there too, and I
How
don't.
often did they?
Actually, it was only if they suspected that you were on a substance.
Okay.
So you, like, I was
Except
there.
weed, because it was Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were super cool about weed, and like, honestly, like, they knew sometimes we'd get drunk too, and they wouldn't really care about that. Like, if you showed up absolutely, you know, toasted, hammered, and, you know, then they would actually make you do a breathalyzer, and they send you to a detox for the night. And same with, like, if they caught you, if you pissed hot for drugs, you would either, if you were high, that, like, super high when you did that, then they send you to a detox. And if you weren't high, but you still, like, you know, came up positive for drugs, then you just get the overnight's worth till it's out of your system.
What's a detox?
A detox is a government-run facility where police can pick up somebody who is too intoxicated on the street to go and spend
Until they're
time
sober.
there until they're sober.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So yeah, you know, I got heavy into using psychedelics and, you know, drinking a bit more.
And
while I
where
was
did
at
that-
Urban Peak.
So where did that start as far as, so you said you've done a lot of drugs, just different types, and then when did your guys' drug use start? I'm just curious.
Urban Peak for me, definitely, because I was in
And
the
that's
wrong
just-
environment.
Okay, got it.
And for me, probably
Everybody
about,
there was using.
for me, it's probably about the age of 13,
Okay.
12 or 13.
And what do you so you say Urban Peak is when you started doing drugs, and then when you were 13 you started doing drugs?
Yeah.
Had you drank before then?
Well, actually, alcohol I consider a drug, and that was probably one of my first
Okay,
ones.
yeah.
So I started drinking and smoking weed at around the same time, and that was that was 13, and I started smoking cigarettes at the age of 12.
Okay. And then how about you, Hayden?
I started vaping when I was like 16.
Like juuling and stuff?
Yeah,
Or like
but
box mod kind of
like,
stuff?
yeah, box mod.
Yeah.
Back then they didn't have Juuls, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd order like a little pen off of Amazon and,
Okay.
you know, go to the vape store and get some juice. They didn't have salt nicotine back then either, so.
So was there not nicotine in it?
No, there was.
There was,
It was
okay.
like, you know, the usual like 0, 3, 6, or is it 8? I haven't vaped
Yeah,
so
0,
long.
3, 6, 9, 12,
Yeah,
all the way
yeah.
up to 24.
Okay. And so then you guys both started with, so you started with vaping, you started with drinking and weed.
Well,
And
I started with cigarettes and then.
cigarettes, okay.
Yeah.
And when did you go up the ladder as far as like, so you got into psychedelics, you said at Urban Peak, and then how about you?
I first did psychedelic mushrooms at the age of 14, and honestly, psychedelic drugs are still a big part of my life. I don't really do them a lot right now, but
Neither of us have done
I-
psychedelics in at least 2 years.
yeah, but I still have a very deep, profound respect for them, and I still am more than willing to do them
Me
again.
too. Yeah.
True.
Psychedelics I classify not necessarily as bad drugs unless you take it too far, because psychedelics really helped expand my worldview and, you know, reanalyze my past mistakes and help me, you know, move on from some of the trauma I'd endured emotionally and, you know, as I said, expand mentally.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who've benefited from psychedelic use, and then there's soldiers that come back that have like
PTSD.
PTSD, and apparently they benefit a lot from that stuff. So
Yeah, I've heard that too. Actually, I've heard like MDMA they gave to
Yeah.
soldiers that came back, and it like basically like cured their PTSD for several months at a time.
yeah, it's interesting how the scientific use of it can benefit some. But so then yeah, you got into
psychedelics, you did mushrooms, and then did you do mushrooms for your first time as well?
Oh no, I did LSD for my first time.
Okay.
And I
what
switched back and
prompted
forth.
you to get into those drugs? Just curiosity?
Yeah.
This guy?
Honestly, for me, it was curiosity. I heard that they were unlike anything that you've ever, like, you know, experienced before. Like, words just don't work for it, you know. And
Yeah.
you develop such profound, you know, you can develop a really profound wisdom from doing that sort of stuff, you
Yeah.
know. And don't get me wrong, of course, it can go either way. And like, I definitely, back in the day when I was like a, you know, rebellious teenager, I used to think like toast the world, you know, but I don't feel that way anymore. I believe it's, you know, I believe only some people can get the benefits from it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I don't believe that absolutely every substance is for every person, you know?
True.
But yeah, I just was opened up to a whole new, I've always had a very like literally would freeze me up like a crippling fear of death, and psychedelics was like one of the only things that helped me get rid of that.
Okay.
And to the point where I would like freeze up, I'd start like turning like white, like panicking and crying just because of the idea that I was going to die one day.
Yeah.
And yeah, psychedelics was one of the few things that helped me get
Clear
peace
that up.
over that.
Yeah. Okay. True. And then so then yeah, you did psychedelics, LSD in
And mushrooms. I also messed around a lot with, you know, designer drug research chemical
what's that?
psychedelics, like 2,5-NBOMe, known on the streets as fake acid. It's actually somewhat dangerous, but it was still a psychedelic.
Fake acid?
Hmm.
Fake acid. Okay. I've
Yeah,
not heard of
because
that.
it can come on.
So yeah, basically what it is it's easier to synthesize. It's a cheaper high.
Then acid.
Yeah, think like, have you heard about crocodile? Okay. Yeah,
Actually, I feel like I have heard about that.
it was like it went around in like Russia. It was like the cheaper, faker heroin that was like rotting people's arms.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the crocodile of LSD. You know,
Yeah.
cheaper to synthesize, easier.
But it was deadly, you know, like
Yeah, it could be deadly. It was. There's a lot of that going around in the streets. So people would always tell people who do psychedelics to use a test kit, make sure it's real.
Were those readily accessible to you guys?
yes.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, well, sort of. I mean, I had to buy it, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? But yeah, I always had a test kit on me everywhere I went until I had people that I trusted, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because there is so many people that would just, you know, they don't give a shit. They'd rather just, you know, come up on your money and not, you know.
Guarantee your safety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the Grateful Dead shirt, I'm part of the Grateful Dead family and shit, so it's, I don't know, it's I guess kind of like a gang, but no, it's not a gang, it's just a family of people who really enjoy the Grateful Dead
Family
music, and
hippies. Yeah.
we're really deep into like, you know, the acid game and like, you know,
Well, some of them.
psychedelics.
There's also wharf
and-
rats, which are, you know, deadheads who you're just about the love. You're not about the psychedelics.
Yeah, but
True. So then you guys got into psychedelics, and then where did that evolve next to, and then where did you start your transition from living in Denver and then deciding, okay, we're gonna come out to California?
I decided to, you know, he told his part about how he, you know, did the whole housing and, you know, motel thing. I decided to hitchhike to a giant rainbow festival, which is a giant gathering of hippies in the woods, pretty much. Yeah, it was in Oregon. I hitchhiked there and I hitchhiked back.
Wow. How long did it take each way?
So somebody was actually willing to give me a ride all the way there. So that only took.
First try, like in a car all the way?
I found them on the internet, so if you
Wow.
can consider that hitchhiking,
Yeah.
they were going themselves.
still
passing
getting
through
in the
Denver.
car with the stranger,
So
so.
kind of, yeah, still hitchhiking.
Yeah. And what is it like? And how much do you like? For me, I wouldn't like that because I like to be in control relatively
For
of like
sure.
a situation. And then you're subjecting yourself theoretically to like the mercy of the person at the wheel.
Mhm.
So how did it feel to just like let that go and be like, oh, like take me to Oregon?
Well, that's the thing about, you know, Grateful Dead and the Grateful Dead family is, you know, in these festivals and, you know, gatherings, a lot of people know each other. So, I called them, I got their names, I got to know them a little bit, called some of the people I knew that I trusted, and I said, hey, do you know this person? Have you seen them around any gatherings or festivals? And they'd be like, yeah, they're trustworthy. So.
True.
Yeah, I don't know, there's a lot more it's one of the only drug cultures that actually has, like, people who, like, truly, like, love and respect each other and have, like, dignity, than that sort of stuff. A lot of other drug cultures is all about, most people will fucking rob you blind for the next high and shit. But
Yeah.
But hitchhiking on the way back, I didn't have that. So that
So you
was
had to
a little
figure that
scary,
out?
for sure.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, it was my only way of getting back to Denver.
Yeah.
So
And why stay in Denver?
it's where I felt comfortable.
Okay.
I don't know, it's where I ended up,
Yeah.
because I was born in New Mexico, then I lived in Texas, and then I lived in Denver for a while.
But
Yeah,
then
you
I
obviously.
kind of want to see it all,
Yeah. But then yeah, go ahead.
I knew whenever I was living in Denver, it wasn't, my final resting place, So, yeah, anyway,
Yeah, I come
Hayden comes back.
and, we end up getting on our feet together, and we got an apartment for a while. We went through a whole lease, renewed the lease, and then got addicted to opiates.
Yeah.
So that was where it kind of started going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And so, who did one of you show the other opiates?
I did. I showed Hayden.
And
heroin.
at what point did you do opiates for the first time?
The first time, well, I was doing meth at the age of 17,
Okay.
and that's when I lived in Carlsbad, New Mexico, also whenever I was working in the oil fields.
And when you were, sorry to interrupt, so you did psychedelics, and then was it just kind of like, oh, I want to try the next thing, and like building that ladder up, or?
No, I had only done mushrooms a few times whenever I went up to Carlsbad, and I honestly don't even remember what came around to me doing it, but like I just knew like my roommates were fucking around with it. And
With methamphetamines?
yeah, and I don't know, I've always had like a curiosity. I kind of always wanted to try everything once, so.
I used to be that way. My exception was meth and heroin, and I made it the exception for heroin because I wanted to understand why my mom prioritized heroin over feeding me. And I understood. I wish
Yeah.
I didn't, but I've
So-
still never done meth, which is great.
Okay. But you've done heroin? Yeah.
We were addicted for how long? 2 years?
2 or 3, something like that.
Yeah. And we came out here to get clean. We got scholarshiped at a rehab out here, and we did our 30 days, and we got clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we moved into a PHP program.
We
What's
stayed
PHP
there.
stand for?
It's
Partial
partial hospitalization.
Okay.
It was basically like a sober home, and we did our time there, and got out, and we're still sober. We just smoke cigarettes.
I smoke
We're
weed.
working-
I smoke a little bit
we're
of
working
weed
on
here.
the
A lot of
thing
people
now.
smoke weed. Yeah, a lot of people smoke weed. But what was the first time like doing methamphetamines for you, and did you get addicted after doing meth for the first time, or no?
It definitely wasn't the first time. It was sort of like the fact that like my friends, like my only real friends in Carlsbad that like I was close to were doing it. They're doing it regularly.
So it was the social
like,
aspect.
Yeah, and like I did it once and like it felt good, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't addicted. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna start doing this every day, It's just like, oh, and then they had it around again, so I did it again. And then they had it around again, and they did it again. And I don't know, with meth, people stay up for like days and days and days on end because it's a really strong stimulant,
Yeah.
so it's made to wake you up. But I didn't. I got my sleep every night. So I didn't think I really had that much of a problem until, I realized I had used it every day for about 3 months. I like got to a point where I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Like I was only living off of 2 to 4 hours of sleep every night for like 3 whole fucking months, wasn't eating anything.
So you're just like looking for the next high and the next high.
Exactly, until I finally looked at it, I was like, wait, if I had to go without, like, I'd be fucked. And that's actually, it's weird, whenever I finally realized that was when I put it down. I don't know.
And you put it down and you could just put it away?
Yeah, I went back to it, like, a couple of times, but never for a full-blown addiction. Like, after I got out of addiction, I would just, like, get it for, like, a weekend.
And this is just for meth? Or for everything?
That was sort of what started my other drug use habits, my drug use habits have evolved a lot since then. So
See, what they say about addiction is you're not actually
Hang on, let me
addicted to.
finish this. So my drug use habits have evolved over a really long time. I quit doing meth, in an addictive form. So I would get it and do it maybe once every few months, and then it'd last like 2 or 3 days, and then I'd be done with it again. And I sort of developed that habit with other drugs too. So like when I moved up to Denver, there's a much larger selection of drugs that I was able to find. That's where I found like real LSD. There wasn't real LSD out in Moriarty, New Mexico. There was only mushrooms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Your
I was.
addiction has not evolved.
Hang on
They
one
say
second.
the
Can
addict
I
is
please finish
addicted
this?
to running from their pain, not addicted to the actual substance.
But so I mainly stayed around weed. So I was like mainly just a pothead, and like pretty much every day I smoked weed. And then whenever a weekend would come up, I'd be like, oh, I feel like getting really drunk, or oh, I feel like doing some coke this weekend, or maybe some ketamine, or some acid, mushrooms, Molly, whatever.
And was that why? And when that feeling would come up, where you're like, oh, I want to get drunk, or I want to get really high, or I want to do these different types of drugs, was that a coping mechanism for your situation, or was it a social thing, or what was the incentive that because you said it wasn't addiction, so what drove you to find that high?
I mean, I was getting high absolutely every single day anyway. So obviously, I didn't really have a moment sober because I was still smoking weed. So obviously there is a level of addiction there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when it came to that specifically, I was more a social aspect, and I also just really liked the feeling of strong drugs and getting really fucked up.
Yeah.
I called that getting the drugs out of my system. I'd be like, oh, I feel like doing some ketamine, so I'd go get a gram of ketamine, get all fucked up for a day or two, and then I just put it away again, and I didn't really feel like I needed to do that regularly, you know what I mean? So eventually we came around to doing opiates though, heroin, and I'd done heroin before. It was another one of those drugs that just got out of my system every once in a while, you know?
I'm playing the devil's advocate here. You actually are using it as a coping mechanism. You're not addicted to the substances themselves, which is what you can switch over. But you're addicted to running from your pain because your brain tells you using drugs is the best way to get rid of the pain.
Yeah.
And, I think that's, what the case is with every addict.
Yeah.
But the differences between that and actual opiates, as he said before, he was able to occasionally do opiates before, and then stop. We became physically dependent, meaning without it, we would go through physical withdrawals. And with benzos, opiates, and alcohol, you can become physically dependent. And there's a saying that alcoholics say, and that's that you can't unpickle a cucumber, meaning you could have been a casual drinker before, but you became physically dependent, and you're a pickle now. You can't drink at all anymore.
That's
And
where we are with
because,
opiates.
Your brain chemistry changes. And so once you become sober after you became physically dependent, if you were to use again, your brain would go back into the cycle of thinking, I need to get more and more, or else my body is going to go through agonizing pain. Even if it's not the case, even if you use it one more time afterwards and you're not physically dependent yet, your brain is going to tell you that you are. So you'll go straight back into addiction.
And that's what happened.
That's what happened with us.
Yeah. And how deep into addiction were both of you?
Well, okay,
We lost our housing.
Oh yeah, we lost
I had
everything.
We sold everything that we owned. Trevor lied to his family, to his mom to get money. I lied to my sister to get money. We lied to our friends to get money.
You're talking about this so objectively.
I've talked about it a few times.
Yeah.
We definitely feel regret about the situation, but we've also made amends for these situations, and we're trying to build off of the things that we've done to be better people, not make the same mistakes,
Exactly.
Yeah.
We got to be able to be open about these things, because honestly, hiding them feels kind of, at least to me, feels kind of cowardly. It's
when we were in
those
rehab,
were choices I made
we took
for
the
myself.
time to talk to these people, and feel each of the emotions that were attached to our actions and the pain we went through
Yeah.
very thoroughly.
So you
We
guys,
shared about it a lot. I don't mean to sound callous when I say these things or emotionless,
yeah.
We've talked about it a lot,
Mm-hmm.
I think the worst thing just absolutely shattered me was having to give away my cat to a shelter because we couldn't take care of her anymore.
Yeah, we were about to lose our housing, and can't have a cat out on the streets. Like a dog maybe, because dogs will follow you around, but cats, they do whatever the hell they want to do, and that cat was an indoor cat, so we didn't.
wanted to give her, the best life that she could have, so I had to take her to a shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really sucked. I love that cat.
That was probably one of the most painful experiences, and like
At that point, we were addicted for a couple more months, but it only got worse from there. But that was the point where we decided, like, we have a problem. This is terrible. We need to get out.
mhm.
So we contacted someone who was willing to help us into getting into a rehab down here, and they scholarshiped us. I'm not going to say the name of the rehab, but they bought a ticket for us and took us down to the rehab in Lancaster. We did our 30 days and we got scholarshiped into an after program that kind of took care of us for a while, and we didn't have near enough time to actually get a place of our own, but we got jobs. And, yeah, we
You got
lost
jobs.
the jobs. Yeah, we got jobs, but we lost the jobs as soon as we became homeless because
Can't shower.
you
and
can't
stuff,
prepare food if you can't shower.
Yeah.
It's
So
not
that's
hygienic.
kind of the. So I'm interested. Yeah. So not that I'm interested. I've been interested in this whole
I know
time.
what you're saying.
But I'm saying what I'm interested in is there's that weird thing where, so I could be like, okay, so there's homeless people, and it's like, just get a job. Like, why can't you just get a job? And I think people say that a lot. Like, I've said that before, misunderstanding the situation. So to people who are just like, oh, like, you guys just get a job. And it depends on the person in the situation, but at least for you two, like, why don't you just, like, go get a job? Or, like, what is the circle you get stuck in as far as, like, so you have to shower to be able to prepare food and all those things. So are there places, so there's places you can go where they provide you, like, maybe housing and cleanliness that would enable you to get a job enough to get an apartment? Or, like, how do you get, like, out of the loop?
So there are a few problems with you being able to just get a job. We have a current opportunity of, this super nice lady we met that's going to allow us to do some gardening work for her for under the table cash, which is kind of our in
Yeah.
to be able to
Start doing
afford
better.
what we need. But the problem for most homeless people and for us is not having the right documents. For one, you need a social and an ID to get a job. He's getting his birth certificate mailed to Mary's Kitchen.
So
I
I
don't
can
even
get
know
my
Mary's
ID.
Kitchen is.
So basically, yeah, I lost
He
my.
doesn't have his ID. Sorry, he doesn't have his ID, which means he can't get the job because of paperwork issues. On top of paperwork issues, there's also having the right clothes for interviews. You wear clothes out on the street for 2 days, and they look like this.
Yeah.
So you need to have the proper interview clothes. On the actual applications, you need to be able to write down a physical address. You write down Mary's Kitchen. You know what Mary's Kitchen is, right? Yeah, they'll look it up and they'll be, oh, this person doesn't have an address. They're homeless. I don't know how reliable they're going to be able to show up to work.
And are those people righteous in their worries about that?
I wouldn't say they're righteous,
Not
but
righteous,
I
but
understand where they're
yeah.
coming from for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
And I can
Righteous
imagine
was
there's
the
been a
wrong
few
word.
people that they have given chances to have not done good with those opportunities.
Yeah,
so.
as a business, they could lose money on these people for sure. So I get it, but as a whole, every business thinks that way, and it creates a system of oppression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's other things too. Like we have this giant cart with all of our bedding stuff. Because we have that giant cart, they won't let us on the bus because it's too big to take on the bus. So now we have limited all the potential jobs to what we can find in walking distance of Mary's Kitchen. So
It's a great question, by the way. I appreciate
Basically,
you asking.
everything, it's never just one thing. It's all of these little hurdles that when stacked up becomes a fence. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's...
Because to me, it doesn't seem like... So, I've talked to police... I had a police officer on this podcast, and he has an opinion, and then other people will wait. He has like a certain opinion, and then other people that I know have opinions. But some people say that a lot of homeless people, it's like they're in a drug, well, it depends, but a lot of them are in a drug-induced or mental unstable position where they don't want to help themselves get out of their situation.
That
a lot
does
of people
exist.
are.
Yeah.
In that, I'd say 60 to 70% of homeless people are.
But you guys are super intelligent, seems like capable people. So ultimately, why are you homeless?
Well, we've only been homeless for a few months.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
for
haven't
sure.
been in it for too long.
It's not, why are you homeless? But in the future, the question would be, why are you still homeless?
Okay.
There are outs. It's hard to get to them.
Just because of a lack of ID, a lack of cleanliness to be able to work a job. Okay. And so then, as far as finding a solution to those things, where do you think that comes from? Is it giving to... So, like, do you give money to people who are homeless? Do you give people shelter and then a job opportunity? How do you identify the people that are like you guys who I feel like if you were given an opportunity now, you would overcome... Because are you guys currently addicted to drugs or no?
No, we're
Okay.
sober.
So then, do you feel like if you were given an opportunity that you would take advantage of it to get yourselves out?
Absolutely. I just got my, there's this really nice guy I met a couple days ago. He literally paid for me to order my birth certificate. So my birth certificate came in the mail, and I have his address that I can use now for mail and everything. So because of that, that'll give me a proof of residency and my birth certificate. So then I got my ID, and that's 1,000 more jobs just opened up, just like that.
1,000 more jobs and access to a shelter. I'm sorry for
Exactly.
interrupting you so
Then
much,
I
by
can
the
go
way.
and get my stimulus checks. That stimulus alone, that's fucking $3,000 in my pocket. That alone will get me off the fucking streets. You know what I mean? And then once I'm off the streets, I can shower. I can throw that fucking card away. I'm sorry, I hate that thing. I pull it everywhere.
Everybody hates it.
Yeah, for real, everybody hates it. Even the security guard here, he fucking hates it.
So this is your guys's... So you have a plan.
Yeah,
We do.
absolutely.
Which is huge, because I think a lot of people, like you talked about, you get into the methamphetamine-induced state where you're talking to yourself and you become not even in the, like, you're not even present. But
Exactly.
So there's people like you guys on the streets who have a plan, but then there's people who are, in a way, like they don't have a plan.
Yeah, they're being reactive to the situation instead of being proactive.
Yeah, I can tell you the only way to differentiate, which person is on which side of the fence is to actually sit down and talk to them.
Exactly, because there's even people who are like us, but they are addicted to drugs. Like, addiction is a son of a bitch. I mean, I've seen both sides, stimulants and opiates, and I've seen people who are just absolutely fucked because of their addictions. But honestly, deep down, like, they would talk to us right now, you wouldn't even know that they were high, but they have to fucking come up with like $100 every day just to feel normal, because like,
Well, you would know. They wouldn't be able to sit and talk as long as we have. They would start to show symptoms of needing their substance.
Exactly, or they'd get irritable, but you know what I mean, like, when it comes to, even addiction, that's not even the main thing, or sometimes it's mental illness, and with our healthcare system, these people can't go see a doctor or a psychiatrist to get what they need to be able to, not be all crazy in the head and actually be able to go and apply for jobs and whatnot. So, it's unfortunately, like, I find it very hard to believe that there's even, a few people out there who don't want to do better. You know what I mean? I feel like absolutely every human being wants to do better. I feel like a lot of them, though, feel like they can't.
Okay.
Yeah, and bottom line is, like, you have to not only want to do better, but have the willingness to take the steps to get there.
Yeah.
And a huge part of why I hate being homeless is it's extremely oppressive.
Exactly. There's a whole stigma
everybody
behind
looks
it there.
down on you. I have a misdemeanor charge now. A misdemeanor charge for sitting over there.
Yeah. Okay.
Sitting over there, loitering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you
I
think?
have a court date. I have a court date coming up now for that misdemeanor charge for sitting down in the wrong area, which is just terrible. And I'm not going to be able to pay it until I have a job.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to fine me, I hear. And I just like personally don't think that's fair. You know, that's just one example of how oppressive it is.
Exactly.
Where does the oppression come from for the most part?
Capitalism.
Okay.
Keep
The fact
politics out of
that
this.
the fact that our entire system runs on money, and that's the one thing homeless people don't have. You know what I mean? It's like we're in this system that like you gotta pay for every little thing. We're the only like species on this planet that has to pay to live at all. You know what I mean? And you know, as soon as you fall behind on that money, that's what the world fucking runs on. You know, if you don't have the money to fucking pay your next rent, you don't have your money to like to pay these little bullshit tickets, you don't have the money to fucking go and buy food, then you're screwed, and then even like everything we build around it is just trying to make it harder for homeless people too. Like here in the city of Orange, if you're out there flying a sign like we do, trying to make a few bucks so we can eat, we can get another ticket, and you get another court date and another ticket you have to pay, just for literally begging that you don't have enough money,
Yeah.
So yeah, you talk to an officer. I'm sure you heard them say, like, I'm sure you heard their opinions on homeless people. I believe the oppression also comes from a large assumption that homeless people just don't want help.
Yeah.
How much of that is true, do you think?
I don't know. I've actually met some officers
60
that
to
have
70% of homeless people out here, I'd say, are addicted to drugs. So a large portion is true, but it's not.
Is it that they don't want help, or is that they don't want to help themselves?
I think it's literally. I don't even think it's either of those. I think.
Yeah, I've been through an addiction, so I can tell you.
Yeah.
It's incredibly hard, and it's.
Withdrawals suck, man.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to get out of it. So it's actually maybe not even necessarily that they don't want to help themselves. It's that
They can't. I mean, most of these people can't afford to go to a rehab. If you can't go to a rehab on opiates, you might like literally die from your diarrhea shits.
you don't need to go.
Sorry,
into details.
yeah, a little bit too graphic there. My bad. But if you can't afford to go and get the medications you need to rebalance your, what's going on in your head from trying to sober up, then like you're literally like, imagine the saddest, angriest, most hurt you've ever been, and it's like chemically induced that feeling for like 5 days. You know what I mean?
So where does that leave?
And yes, it can kill you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can die from that as well. Your body quits regulating itself. It no longer keeps its core
there
temperatures.
is a way out, but that's particularly with alcohol, benzos, and opiates. I cannot speak for meth addicts. Honestly,
especially also meth addicts.
I hate
Where do we
meth
get to
addicts
sleep?
because
We get challenges with trying to sleep, and we sleep from 11 o'clock at night to 4 o'clock in the morning in a place, and that's like the only little bit of sleep we're ever able to get away with. When you're on meth and you're about to come down, you need to sleep for at least 3 fucking days before you're ready to even...
Okay, then don't do meth. There aren't intense withdrawals with meth, from what I understand. That's why I hate meth addicts.
Don't
and they
do
make other
opiates.
homeless people look terrible. Why do you think I'm not on opiates, It's like bottom line.
You know what I'm trying to say.
A lot of people don't want to get out of it because, one, it's incredibly difficult. 2, it's all they know. It's their best coping skill. And 3, they don't have the finances to get out. And based on this assumption of, they don't want to get help, they just assume it's because they literally just don't feel like it. They don't feel like getting a job. They don't feel like quitting their drug habit. Nothing is that simple,
Exactly.
but
it's like seeing like you have a whole mountain you have to climb just to get back to living in poverty. You know what I mean? Like
the Orange County solution for homelessness is outlaw it, and it's terrible.
Outlaw it?
Outlaw it, yeah.
Yeah,
You cannot
well,
sleep.
sorta.
You cannot legally sleep anywhere. in
If
Orange,
you were-
anywhere. You will get a ticket for it. You cannot buy a sign anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, how are homeless people going to make their money? You can't sit in an area for longer than like 30 minutes without a police officer rolling up and either gracefully giving you a warning to tell you to leave or giving you a misdemeanor charge.
Or saying that somebody called, saying they saw you like shooting up needles. We've gotten that around here too. They
Yeah,
like
that's-
called, and somebody who just doesn't like homeless people said they saw us like shooting up needles in public. And so because of that, the police had reasonable suspicion. They like searched all of us, searched all of our cart, couldn't find drugs or anything. It's like, oh, okay, sorry about that. Like, where's my rights? Like, I don't know. You
Your
guys
rights
should
are
be able to
violated
search
recently.
because some random person just said that we're on drugs. You know what I mean?
And as you can see, there's no track marks on our arms. We don't use needles.
It's
Yeah, we've
literally,
gotten off track here. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. It's okay.
it's the whole system's it's backwards. It's all fucked up, and it makes it so that once you lose it, and you fall behind, it's 10 times harder to catch back up. You know what I mean?
And then there's one more issue with homelessness, and it's probably the scariest one. And that's if you ever become homeless, get out as fast as you can, because you know, say you're homeless for 5 years, you have to explain that gap of employment to anybody you give your resume to.
Yeah. So
Not to mention the mentality effects. Like even us, we've been out here like 6 months top. No, like 3 months because
Yeah,
March
there's
4th.
a disconnection from mainstream society as well.
You start like that's why we do
You
our
don't
best
get
to
to
talk
approach
to
people
people
who
like
aren't
this, and
homeless.
that's why we do our best to try to stay as friendly as possible, because even the way we are, it really affects your psyche. Like just seeing how everybody looks at you, they look at you like you're a wild animal sometimes, you know what I mean? And it gets to a point where you start just hating people. Like you don't even understand it. You just see a person like, oh, look at this fucking rich motherfucker. Like fuck him, he doesn't want, you know, and like
Yeah,
you don't even know these people, you
Calm
know?
down.
Like they're actually probably good people, but the way society is built, it just makes it seem that like, you know, everything is out against you. And I know that's not the truth, but it's easy to believe that, you know what I mean? And it just slowly can just eat away at like your optimism, your, you know, your hope for getting out of the situation. All these things are just, you know, they
It's devastating.
yeah.
So what do you think would be an appropriate solution for homelessness on a small scale?
I don't
And just
believe
within-
A
that-
small scale.
Okay, within a small scale.
Because I think saying like, oh, what's the solution to homelessness
For
is
sure.
like so impossible because every situation's different.
Exactly.
Uh,
I believe that honestly, it's case by case. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a lot more than just like, you know, even doing one thing for a homeless person to get them out. Like I said, you know, you fall behind, you lose everything. You know, you fall back. You need to work on. You need to get sober. You need to get your life together. You know, you need to have a job. You need to be showered, and you need to be, you know, ready. And you need to do that all at the same time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, you know, like we go out there and fly a sign, and there's a person who, you know, gives us a $5 bill. They did help, you know, and that it may not seem like that's helping cure homelessness, and maybe it doesn't for some people, but it fed us tonight, you know what I mean? And then there's other people who, you know, they ordered me my birth certificate. Because I got my birth certificate ordered, I can now work on getting my ID, and that's another step closer towards, you know, both getting a place and getting a job. And so that's another thing. And then, you know, you run into people like you who, you know, sits here and talks about these things to help educate other people to learn, you know.
Hey, baby,
And-
the solution for homelessness is not the middle and upper class taking time out of their day to rescue the homeless.
It's
I get
partially
where you're
that.
coming from.
It's partially that, and it's partially personal responsibility. It's partially getting help and a partially bit helping yourself.
what do you
Yes,
think?
helping yourself, but
Yeah, what do you think the solution is?
there's an article here, Finland ends homelessness and provides shelter for all. You look at different countries, Norway, Sweden, China, and their homeless is next to none. You know, there are a lot of most Chinese cities. They're only homeless that they have are too mentally unwell to be able to, you know, help themselves, you know. The solution I can tell you is definitely not outlawed. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely
you know,
not.
look at what other countries are doing for their homeless. You know, look at what these other solutions other countries are taking, and you know, maybe try some of those solutions, because the current one is not working.
Yeah.
You know, there are waiting lists out here to get into shelters that are like 8-9 months long.
But it's also kind of I don't know, even with Norway and Sweden and stuff, like Orange County did what Norway and Sweden did. We weren't homeless at the right time. When Orange County first made
No,
they made a bunch of shelters, and they made it so that pretty much every homeless person in Orange County was off the streets. But because
shut
of
those
that,
shelters
they
down.
were able to make all these laws. So
You know,
basically,
they are heading in the right direction politically. $14 billion is I heard $14 billion is going to be donated into helping the homeless. I read it somewhere on an
Yeah.
article. I don't remember, like, you know, the nitpicky details, but yeah.
So, something I'm curious about is, so if I give money, like just cash, to like a homeless person on the street, or like you guys said you were flying a sign, how much is that? How much of the time is that cash really benefiting the person, rather than them like even like buying drugs with it or doing things like that? And is it better, instead of, so say if someone wants to help, is it better for them to go with you to go buy food just to guarantee that money, because I think that's a serious concern for a lot of people, is that like, oh, I don't want to give money to homeless people because then they're just going to use it to buy drugs or things like that.
Can't give you a figure, but I can tell you, you know, look at the way that the person is carrying themselves. If they look like they're a little bit out there, they're probably a little bit out there. You can't differentiate mental illness from drug use in that case most of the time, but you know, that could be definitely a factor. The most clear defining way of telling where the money is going to go is talking to the person, asking them questions. Are they you know, mentally stable? Do they have needle marks? You know, and you know, even then, you know, there's really no way to tell. That's an indicator, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not gonna go spend it on drugs.
yeah,
A lot of alcoholics can, you know, look like me and talk to you like this. So definitely there are people who put together care packages. Those are really, really helpful.
Yeah.
There are people that put money on Visa gift cards, which is, you know, a definite way to give cash without
them
you know,
being able to spend it on drugs.
exactly. And you know, buying homeless people food is also really, really helpful. Say those are the 3 best ways to make sure that you help them without
Encouraging drug use.
yes,
Yeah.
without allowing them to, you know, be a harm to themselves.
True.
Yeah.
And then just out of personal, it's 7:06, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, let's wrap this up.
Okay. Real quick, just it's not a fun question, but so when I first came up to you guys, I talked about how YouTubers will like give away food to homeless people and film it, and I always think about the ethical implications of that. It's like, okay, well, you're doing a benefit because you like these people are better off. Like you guys would be better off with food than no food, but then that person is potentially making a decent amount of money off of what they're doing. So where do you think the line is of like, is it better that they're doing it, or is it better if they didn't do it because of what they're potentially like getting from it?
So
I
it has to do with
personally-
integrity, which is doing the right thing regardless of who sees you, right?
Yeah.
So you're still giving to the homeless, you're still doing a good thing, but you don't have integrity.
Yeah,
you know?
you're doing the right
because-
thing for the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? You're not doing that to help the homeless person. If you're doing that for the views, then you're not. That's not the right way to do it. Not in my opinion, you know. And I personally, I don't like any of those videos. And also, as a homeless person, I could say that shit is very rare. I've never met one person, and I've been homeless for 3 times now in my life, and multiple years for at least one time.
Yeah, that's
3
never
times.
happened to me. I've
Never
never
happened to
been-
me, never seen that happen to anybody, you know what I mean? So I personally feel like it's a lot rarer than, what like pop culture would say. But I also like what does exist of it, I feel happy for that homeless person because I know that they got it, but I do find that doing that sort of stuff is just, I don't know, like, yeah, like I said, you're doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. It's like, oh, hey, look, I'm such a good person. I'm doing this because, you know, I you know, want you guys to see me as a good person and not to just actually be a good person. You know what I mean?
True. Cool. Any last words for people who like drive by a homeless person, or who just want to know more about your situation, or just in general?
Don't yell at us to get a job. We're trying. You know what I mean? Like, trust me, I would much rather get to go to work at a set time every day, and, you know, even if I'm working my ass off, I'd rather get paid shit money to go work my ass off and have a solid, steady income than to have to go out there and fly a sign. Even if I was doing really good out there, you know? If I get nothing but, like, you know, a bunch of people giving me $100 bills, I'd still feel better going out working and saying I earned it. And I feel a lot of homeless people feel the same way. We're not proud of the fact that we have to do these sorts of things to survive, you know?
Adding on to that, you know, everybody has a battle that you can't see, you know, including, you know, you who sees the homeless person. Everybody has a battle going on that you can't see. So don't judge anybody. Don't make any assumptions on their character. And
just try to be the best person you can be, you know?
Yeah, overall.
Yo, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to that podcast with Trevor and Hayden. They're super cool people. I'm super fortunate I got to meet them, and I want to help them. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, I want to start a GoFundMe for Trevor and Hayden to help them get off the street, but I also mentioned that you guys probably would have questions before I do so, just about what they're willing to do to get off of the street, the steps that we would go about if they got the money, like how that would all work. And I want to hear from you guys what you are curious about. Send me the questions, like comment in this video or DM me or whatever, however you can reach me. Just ask me the questions and we will get them together, and then I will sit down with Hayden and Trevor and we will make a more clear video about what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it, and then we'll start the GoFundMe from there and get things going. So thank you guys, have a great day, peace out.